Gotta remember, I can't itch my face. I probably can't smoke that either.
Probably not.
I'm just gonna have to smoke it and baby bird it into my mouth. I'm the Joker, baby.
Me too.
But doesn't
I'm Jared
kill
Leto's
you.
Joker, which is why I'm shirtless and my head has a face tattoo.
But doesn't kill you, only makes you stranger. Tonight we saw Joker the musical, but if you ask Todd Phillips, it's Joker. It's not a musical, I promise. Please see it. Please, please God, please see it. It's not a musical, I promise. So Connor, what was the plot of Joker Pretentious Name?
Joker 2 follows the Joker after he's been arrested. Some indiscriminate amount of time has passed. And the Joker and what they want to do with him following his killing spree of the first movie is the question on everyone's mind. His lawyer thinks he's genuinely insane and wants him to plead insanity so he can be kept in the mental hospital. Everybody else wants to give him the death penalty. And shenanigans ensue when Joker meets his first groupie, Lady Gaga, as Harley Quinn. They sing a fuckload of songs and nothing really happens, and then they go to court and Joker fires his lawyer and represents himself. Somehow, he starts talking shit, he's getting into it. This offends the prison guards, so they butt rape him, and then this causes him to become a totally normal guy. And then the courthouse gets bombed, and then Harley Quinn says, I don't actually like you, and you're a normal guy. And he says, oh, okay. But I thought you were pregnant after our explicit sex scene. And she sings a song and doesn't really elaborate, and it doesn't really matter, I guess. And then Joker gets shanked in prison and the movie ends. So, Aiden, what did you think of Joker, Folie, Deux, Joker?
It's boring. It's really fucking boring. There are a lot of analogies you could make, but it's just the epilogue to the last movie. Like, the last movie ended with Joker in prison, and you can kind of extrapolate what happens to him because this is like the grounded Joker that doesn't have Batman. And you can kind of extrapolate that he would sit in prison for a long time and then eventually go to court and maybe get the death penalty or something. And so we see that. We see 2.5 hours of the Joker sitting in prison quietly. Well, it's like an hour and a half of him sitting in prison quietly, and then it's interrupted by long, bad musical numbers. And all the musical numbers, they don't progress the plot like normal musicals. They're just like Joker and Harley sing a song about how much they love each other, and then Joker sits in prison quietly for 10 more minutes, and then another song comes. And then eventually he becomes more like the Joker, where he's like boisterous and making fun of the guards. And then those same musical numbers keep playing. And there's a minute towards the end where you think it's gonna like turn around when he decides to represent himself in court. And he like harasses the midget, and you think something's gonna happen, and then he gets butt raped, and he's like, oh, never mind.
Yep.
It's really boring. It's kind of got the Megalopolis effect of being pretentious, and it's like trying way too hard to be deep and interesting, but it's also the most boring movie ever made.
Yes.
It's so fucking boring. I don't even really know words to describe it that aren't boring, because 80% of this movie is a mentally ill guy sitting in prison, and I could just go visit my dad if I wanted to see that. It's boring. Todd Phillips, after ripping off the King of Comedy, had nothing else to rip off apparently, and just decided to go off the rails and make whatever this is like his subversive Last Jedi masterpiece, where it's like people looked up to the Joker in real life and they're bad people, so I'm gonna show a movie where he just sits in prison and it's really boring. And he did that, and just like The Last Jedi, he made his point, and it was really boring. The musical numbers are all bad and irrelevant to anything going on.
Lady Gaga is a good singer, but Joaquin Phoenix does not keep up. He's not like the worst singer.
No,
but
fine.
you got like professional singer and
but
not
also
professional singer.
They're just doing like different variations of the same show tune where they're just like, I really love you, I really love you. And then she's just a horny groupie and roasties him, and he's like, oh, that sucks, I guess. Yeah, I don't know. It's so mind-numbingly boring, and it's like trying to be all subversive, like the Joker was a bad guy, but people looked up to him, so now he just sits in prison and it's boring. Like, yeah, okay, but you made a boring movie. It'd be like if there was like an entire extra season of The Sopranos that was just like Tony's funeral or something, and you just like watched people at a funeral
a whole
quietly
extra
crying.
season of Breaking Bad, where it's Walt's funeral and everyone's crying. Maybe not. Everyone kind of hated Walt at the end of that show, kind of, but whatever.
Yeah, pretty much. But you know, it's an epilogue to the first movie that didn't need to exist because you can assume everything that happens in this movie from the last movie, except the horny groupie, I guess, which is just a thing that is an excuse to put bad musical numbers in this movie. He probably should have found something else that was good to rip off. Like make this My Cousin Vinny with Joker, or like One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest with Joker, or just like rip off anything better like you did the first time, because this was not it. It's so fucking dull. That's what I gotta say about it. I thought we were gonna talk about this thing for 45 minutes like Megalopolis, but that's kind of all I got.
Transformers 1 we went on a roll. We don't got much here.
Connor, what'd you think of Joker 2? Joker Folie à Deux.
Joker 2 is exactly what Aiden said. It's a 2-hour epilogue at the end of Joker that shows that he kind of had his 15 minutes of fame as Joker Martyr Man for the oppressed in Gotham, and now he's drugged up prisoner, and he's not actually as grand as he wanted to present, or as people made him out to be. I guess he was never that grand. He just wore makeup and killed some people.
Yep.
And as a result, this entire movie takes place in prison. There's nothing really proactive. The main plot, if you boil it down, is Joker has to go to court to avoid the death penalty, or maybe he'll go and get life in prison. And it's not an entirely interesting court drama, because the court drama stuff is kind of a farce. You have Harvey Dent in this movie who definitely attacks the Joker, but like his stuff is more normal lawyer speak as you'd expect. And then Joker kicks out his defense. So, you know, I think the idea of this being like a court drama where perhaps you could have two people kind of debating the mental illness and whatnot, and just kind of like these serial killers and their mentality, could have potentially been interesting, but they threw that out to have Joker become more Joker. As an excuse to move the love story with Lady Gaga along.
In all of the court scenes, except like one of the ones towards the end, there's a lot of court scenes. He's just like a sad, pathetic guy who sits around quietly, and I get that's the point, but it's not exciting.
Yeah, no.
It's just sitting there.
The whole movie is not exciting. And then Harley Quinn revives the spark in him, but I think to kind of subvert something and have something interesting in this idea of a Joker 2, which is like a very mundane like court drama that isn't very good. They add these singing moments, and they do stuff with Joker for shock value, like he has a, you know, it's not Brown Bunny, but it's a pretty like explicit sex scene with Lady Gaga where Joker pulls his wiener out and then starts humping her. And then later, he's gang raped by a group of guards.
Yep.
And it's like, okay, the number one thing is if you're going to throw sexual assault in a movie, you kind of have to have a point or a thesis or something.
He gets raped
This-
so hard he turns normal.
He gets
It's that
raped
easy. He
so
got
hard
cured.
that he becomes normal.
He got cured.
But they don't like explain like maybe it brings back because at one point they flirt with the idea that Joker was sexually assaulted as a kid in the dialogue. You're like, oh, okay, so maybe this will go somewhere. But no, not really. It just makes him normal. Maybe if they like explored like, okay, under abuse he gets repressed, but once his mom died, his Joker personality came out or something.
Or I guess the idea is that like the rape caused him to regress to being like the scared, nervous man from the start of the first movie, but it ultimately is just a boring result.
Yeah, and it's not well enough explained that it seems like anything but like edge. Also, the music numbers, Aiden said they're bad. They are very similar. They're show tunes, where Lady Gaga and Joker talk about how much they love each other in Joker's
They're not
fantasy.
badly made. They're like
There's
shot
some that are
well
kind of
enough.
cool, like when he has the fantasy in the courthouse that finally kind of rejuvenates the Joker.
Yeah.
That one had some cool stuff. Like there's some the music numbers are mixed for me, but a Joker musical, not really what I wanted to see. I would argue that a lot of these points in this movie might have rung less hollow if they were better sent, like the sexual assault stuff and so on and so on. And like the talk of mental illness, like Harley Quinn. Is she lying about her backstory? Blah, 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 whatever. Who fucking cares? But it would ring less hollow if there was better execution, A, and B, this wasn't a Joker standalone movie to sell a shitty art house movie about mentally ill people. The sequel to a movie about a mentally ill people, but in Joker makeup because it sells. It doesn't have anything to do with the Joker. It doesn't have anything to do with the Batman intellectual property. That's irrelevant other than character names like Joker, Harley Quinn, and Harvey Dent.
Yeah, I mean, I guess in the first movie, you could at least make the excuse that it's kind of like tied to the Killing Joke and like Joker's one bad day kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, I don't.
Way. This has nothing to
I
do
don't
with
mind the
This has
idea of
nothing
like
to do with it.
exploring the origins of Joker in a world that will never see him go up against the Batman in like a different way. Like that's fine. That's what the first movie felt like. You have like young Bruce Wayne far enough out that you're never gonna see him. There's not supposed to be a sequel. This is a one-off. But then it was successful and they wanted more money, so they said do it again, but just do a sequel. But the problem is in the world Todd Phillips created, it's not like Joker's gonna use laughing gas to kill everybody and break out of jail like he would in the comics.
Yeah.
He's just some sad dude who gets sexually assaulted and then meets a girl who doesn't actually really love him and loves the ideal of Joker and so on and so on. It's like, I feel like there's a lot here that could potentially be interesting, but none of it's well executed. I don't feel like Todd Phillips or Joaquin Phoenix really... Well, Joaquin Phoenix seemed to be into it, but I didn't get the vibe after the first Joker came out that anyone really wanted to do a sequel, but Warner Brothers is like, come on, it made $1 billion. You guys can do whatever the fuck you want. As long as it's critically acclaimed, we'll be happy. And then obviously this hasn't been. And I think there was so much pressure on Todd Phillips, and
It's got the problem.
he's known as, and I stand by this, Todd Phillips is known as the Hangover guy who went on to direct Joker.
Yep.
And I think with Joker 2, he was trying to prove that despite the fact that he gets put in franchises and that comedy movies one-offs, the Hangover franchise, and then now Joker, which was expected to be a franchise, I think he wanted to prove he could do something different. And
He did.
he failed. It didn't have like, I don't know,
Yeah,
it just...
I mean, making a movie out of spite to spite people who didn't understand your movie tends not to go over very well. See The Last Jedi,
Yeah.
where
Oh.
this is just like people thought the Joker was the hero in the first movie. Like some small amount of idiots on Reddit thought Joker was the hero, and so I'm gonna make a movie about how people like him rot in prison, and prison is really boring, and like
Yeah.
It's true. I mean, that's true in real life.
And the thing I liked about the
boring.
first Joker is
It's
it was
also boring.
open-ended and it just ended. That was the origin of Joker. That was his one bad day, his cracking into eventually being the supervillain that will fight the Batman, and we never need to see that story. This is just how the Joker was made. Joker eventually dies, which kind of ruins part of the first one. Like I said, the idea of the first movie is like, this is kind of the Joker's origin. He'll fight Batman eventually, we'll never see it, that's fine.
Yeah, I think what they were going for is the guy who kills him, like, you can see him vaguely, like, cutting his cheeks open like Heath Ledger in the background. And I think that's supposed to be the real Joker who fights.
This is just
like,
Mr. Martyr Man, but
this
the
is
real Joker.
Mr. Martyr Man who inspired the real Joker, and the real Joker is some gay guy who was in love with the Joker and then stabbed him and cut his cheeks open like Heath Ledger, I guess. And then that's it.
So now this is the movie about not even the real Joker.
It's the first movie is the origin of the guy who inspired the guy who's in this movie for like 6 minutes
But then
total.
there's Harley Quinn. Maybe Harley Quinn
Goes on to bang
being
the second
the
Joker.
groupie. I also like how in this movie Harley Quinn just has like unlimited access to the Joker. They're like, yeah, I snuck into the maximum security thing, and the guards just were fine letting me in because that's the only way that we can have the sex scene happen, and a bunch of other stuff. Ultimately, this movie felt like an excuse for Lady Gaga to drop 2 albums about the Joker movie.
3. There's a soundtrack. There's the soundtrack, the score. The soundtrack and the score
Well, the
getting
score
released
is
separately.
her, but there are 3
No,
soundtracks.
there's a soundtrack, the score, and then the Lady Gaga album. And I guess she didn't probably have much to do with the score, but she did do the other 2.
Yeah. I think the movie's well shot, well edited. It looks good.
Yep.
There were points of the movie I was on board. Like the start, I'm like, okay, where are they going with this? And then they just continued to not go anywhere with this.
Yep.
Like I was on board for the first 15 minutes. I'm like, people are really giving this movie shit, and then it goes nowhere. That's the problem.
It just keeps going.
It starts okay, and I even I don't really understand why they did it, but they started by doing like a 1940s style Warner Brothers short at the start with Joker.
Yep.
Sure.
Well made.
It was cool, well animated. Obviously, it wasn't hand drawn. I do not know why even things like that on a $100 million, $50 million movie or whatever the fuck couldn't afford to just hand draw the animation the old way and make it look better, or more classic, I guess. But whatever.
The point
it doesn't really matter that much. That's a nitpick. It was fun. I was on board for the first half hour, then it got fucking boring, and then he starts representing himself, and I'm like, maybe this will go somewhere. And then it doesn't.
It's just
and
one
there's
scene
a really
of him
weird
questioning
distaste.
the midget.
It's literally a couple,
They
a
should've-
good scene of Joker, and Joker's getting his cloud up, and we're like, okay, everyone's cheering him on. And then it all goes to shit the next scene because...
I mean, you can still have him be revealed to be a pathetic mentally ill guy, but you have to give us something. You have to have something happen. When he represents himself and he's questioning the midget, it's fun for 5 minutes. And then Harvey Dent, and then the judge is like, do you want to give a closing statement? And he's like, no thanks. And then it's just over. The fun's over.
I also
Now
think
it's
the
back to
idea
him
that
getting
this
raped.
other guy might be the real Joker kind of rings hollow when the first movie is trying to not glorify the man, but he's a mentally ill person that degrades into the Joker. That's the story arc.
Yep.
Then we don't need any more. But then in this movie, it proposes the idea that he's not the actual Joker, and all of the Joker-esque shit he did would just go on to inspire the real Joker, and he's really pathetic. But then there's also a real Joker.
6 minutes of this movie.
Yeah, and it's better idea. Just don't make the second movie.
Yeah.
I don't think it was incompetently shot. I don't think it was incompetently edited. I don't hate the idea of it being a musical if the musical numbers weren't cheesy love ballads exclusively. I'm fine with that at first, but maybe Joker does... there's the one scene in the courthouse of the musical number with Joaquin Phoenix
Joker...
breaking back into the Joker, which I thought was a good musical sequence.
It doesn't
but the
even
problem
really...
is so many of these musical numbers are redundant that for the 3.5 minutes each one runs, I just kind of glazed over it. I'm like, okay, whatever.
Yeah, they're all just... all of them except one are just me and Harley love each other. Love, 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 love. There's you have so much room in a musical to express people's inner thoughts, and like this is a man who's mentally ill and struggling between being like a hero of the people and being a pathetic nothing, and none of that is expressed through the music. It's just love song after love song with Lady Gaga.
Right, even the last song where he's like...
Do anything with the music.
Yeah. I also think Lady Gaga's arc was a little hollow. Like, they really spelled it out where... Is she actually just
the lawyer literally spoils it. The lawyer's like, she's just using you for clout.
Everybody was
like, nah, that's not true.
And then she's like, maybe I'm using you for clout. And then he's like, okay, whatever. And then like it happens, and it's like some twist. And like the fact that she's pregnant is like some twist. Which I mean, like if Joker fucked her once, like with no condom, like I'm not saying it can't happen, but the odds are pretty low. Granted,
maybe she planned it all out. But also, I'm pretty sure she was just lying about that.
She was just lying about it.
That's just the way she was.
Also, it's not like a major plot point. That it's like mentioned in passing in the end. He's like, "Is the baby real?" And she's like, "Yeah, I'm gonna sing." And then he's like, "Fucking stop singing!" And she runs off. And then he goes back to jail and gets shanked. The end.
Yeah.
It's like I don't know. It feels like an excuse. I feel like this movie had a marketing strategy. The first movie made a fuckload of money, so let's do that again. Who fucking cares about the plot? Because we're going to make it a musical and hire Lady Gaga to make 3 albums. So now Warner Music makes a bunch of money with this cross-promotion, and it's literally the most... Like, sometimes, like, musical artists will make really, like, crappy little short films or something to tie into their, like, fucking shitty rap project where they talk about, like, snorting Xanax. Even Kanye's done it. I love Kanye West. They Runaway, which is decent, but there's a lot of them that are just like pretentious, and this is the most egregious example of Lady Gaga getting a sequel to a movie about a mentally ill guy who's actually the Joker, the Batman villain, who never meets the Batman, and it has nothing really to do that much with the Joker, but like a vague idea of the Joker.
There's literally
and it's $200 million and features the fucking Joaquin Phoenix.
There's 2 plots this Joker movie could have followed. One is the realistic follow-up to the grounded take on the Joker, where the Joker sits in prison, nothing happens, and that's the one we got. And the other one would be some retarded movie where Joaquin Phoenix gets punched by Batman.
Or
which we didn't get, but
the third option is we have
I thought
we have a movie where there's like musical numbers and shit. So how is it so grounded that he's locked in? Honestly, as pretentious as it sounds, maybe Joker's in jail for the first half hour.
If anything.
And then he meets Lady Gaga, and then they sing, and then like an unrealistic breaking out of prison happens, and he becomes like the greatest person, and everyone loves him. And then at the end, it turns out it was all a dream.
I think
that would have been.
There are 2 alternate ones.
I don't know. There's like a lot of options they could have taken. That wasn't whatever the fuck this was.
One would be like, if you wanted to do the meta commentary on the first one, you could have had all the other inmates like form a cult around the Joker.
Yeah.
And he begins to like take over the asylum, but in the end, it's just revealed that they're all just as sick and pathetic as him, or something. And the other one was a goofy courtroom drama where the Joker represents himself in court, which we got for 5 minutes, and it was the best part of the movie. And then they were like, "Okay, we're out of ideas for that, so we're just gonna move on." And you know, you either make My Cousin Vinny with the Joker, just rip off My Cousin Vinny, or you rip off One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest with the Joker.
Yep.
And they didn't do either of those. They picked the boring option where nothing happens. So he sits in jail. And he's sad.
So, whatever version of Joker Aiden was trying to do, what would you recommend the Joker to? Folie de
No,
Mario.
I don't know what to make of this movie. It's boring. It's boring, and it shouldn't be. Well, first off, David Zaslav should have canceled this like he canceled everything. Because it's
I think you should get like stamp friendly where they're filming stuff, and he's like, we can write it off, you know.
They thought this movie was going to make a lot of money, like the last one. This movie never should have been made because seeing more of this Joker was not necessary. You got all the information you could ever need from the first movie, and the first movie even like ends with like a very vague tease of the Batman fight to come. And I guess they just decided that that wasn't going to happen. It was just going to be some guy who stabs the Joker. But if you were going to make this movie, you need an idea that's not just the epilogue where he sits in prison. It's such a weird, nothing movie that uses musical numbers as padding. They don't tell anything about the story. Like, even High School Musical, the songs are... That movie's made for babies, and those songs are like about the characters' feelings and motivations and progress the plot. And in this movie, the musical numbers are just songs by Lady Gaga about him and the Joker. Lady Gaga and the Joker love each other, and that's it. It's such a nothing movie. It's so weird and just fucking boring. It's honestly just boring. So Connor, as the famous Jared Leto's Joker from the hit movie Suicide Squad, and also he's in Batman vs Superman for like 4 seconds.
No, and he's also in... Is he in Batman vs Superman? No, he's not. He's not. He's in the Snyder Cut.
He's in the post-credits scene of the Snyder Cut in the weird alternate reality thing that was going to be like Justice League 3 that they didn't make because Justice League sucked. What did you think of the movie Joker Folie Deux? Would you recommend the bad Joker movie?
The most disappointing thing about Joker is I would be intrigued by it for like 10 minutes, and then they'd do something really stupid. Like, I'd be like, okay, I'm starting to get into it. They can still save this, and then they do the stupidest shit ever. That's the most disappointing thing. I think there's a lot of good craft here. It's just the script 100%. I don't even think Todd Phillips did a bad job like putting together a cohesive, well-edited musical. The problem is the musical thesis, a little bland. The script didn't really go anywhere exciting and often just was like, well, okay. And it felt like a lot of repeated notes. Like at the end, the Joker says, the new Joker says, you get what you deserve, whatever, blah, blah, blah. He shanks Joker to death. And it's like, I feel like a lot of the moments are callbacks. Like, it kind of is like, I want to do something new, but I also have to try to put stuff in that makes it feel like the old one.
Yep.
So, it's conflicted. I think it could have been good. There's craftsmanship here that I think could have been good. I think it's good sets, the acting's good, there's a lot good. It's just the script is so fucking weak that it ruins the movie, and I don't think the singing or the songs are bad, but I think they don't always excel the plot other than a couple key examples, and I don't want to sit through a 3-minute musical number that doesn't add anything to the story I'm watching. So I am going to say no. I don't recommend this movie.
If I may add,
just maybe watch the first one. I think that was kind of the total story of the Joker.
Or watch The King of Comedy.
Or just
that was the total story of the Joker.
Yeah.
If I may add, it's insane that they made a movie about the Joker with Lady Gaga in it and didn't use Poker Face. Because Joker is a card in poker.
I think it would have been... I don't think they could convince Lady Gaga to sing her 2007 pop hit Poker.
It would have been really funny.
I think Lady Gaga became like one of the most famous pop stars in the world and then decided she actually wanted to be a 1930s lounge singer. Because like half her discography is with... what's that lounge... the famous lounge singer guy. Let's see. My Face ID doesn't pick me up.
Frank Sinatra?
Frank Sinatra's dead, Doug.
No, he's dead now.
Dean Martin?
The guy he did it with, but she did 2 albums with Tony Bennett.
Oh, right.
Who's like a 1950s, 60s like lounge singer type guy. And a lot of her music has gone a little more.
She wants to be the new Marilyn Manson.
And then she did like The Star Is Born, Marilyn Monroe.
Marilyn Monroe, not Marilyn. That's a very different guy.
Yeah. No, I just think she kind of changed
But also,
from her like weird,
just
from
like-
her like it's mainstream but
Just like
supposed to be weird. She was the OG Chapel Roan, and then now she's wants to be a lounge singer, but is also one of the most commercial artists out there.
Just like the Joker too, Marilyn Manson loves raping women. And by women, I mean the Joker prison guards raped the Joker in this movie, and it fixes his mental illness. I can fix her, he says as he rapes her.
If that was taken out of context, like if someone just took that clip. Oh, what? What the fuck was the last thing you said? Some of this is good. Maybe just cut that last part of the sentence.
I'm the Joker, baby.
Here's a joke for you, Maureen. What happens when you have an OB?
What doesn't kill you makes you stranger.
What happens when you have an OB and he's your nephew? He gets what he deserves, which is a bag. No, we're not shooting him. We're petting him because he's a nice boy.
You're a nice boy, Obi.
Curtis and Lena don't show up in
sweating
videos
my makeup
anymore
off.
because
They died in Iraq.
no, they live at my place.